She thought it was just another day in training, another chance to prove herself in a world that doubted her every move. But the moment her sleeve rolled up, whispers turned into cruel laughter. They didn't see her courage, only the color of her skin and the ink on her arm. What none of them knew was that her tattoo carried a history, a truth, and a power that not even the highest-ranking officer could ignore. And when the general walked in, everything changed. Her name was Maya. To most, she was just another recruit in one of the toughest military training programs in the country. But for Maya, every day felt like a test beyond the drills and the discipline. She wasn't just proving her strength as a soldier. She was proving her worth as a black woman in a place where whispers of doubt lingered in every corner. Maya carried herself with quiet determination. She rose before dawn, pushed through every obstacle, and never once complained, even when others questioned why she was there. To her, the uniform was more than fabric. It was a symbol of sacrifice, of belonging, of a dream her family thought she'd never reach. Still, she could feel the unspoken stares. The way conversations would fall silent when she walked by. The way some of her peers laughed a little too loudly at jokes, never meant to be harmless. She ignored it. She had learned long ago that silence could be its own kind of armor. What none of them knew was that beneath her sleeve, hidden from view, was a mark that told her real story. A tattoo not of vanity, but of legacy. And soon, that tattoo would draw out a truth so uncomfortable, so powerful, that even the highest-ranking officer in the room would have no choice but to acknowledge it. The breaking point came on a sweltering afternoon during training drills. The recruits had been pushed to exhaustion, mud on their boots, sweat pouring down their backs. As Maya reached for her canteen, the fabric of her sleeve slipped just enough to reveal the edge of her tattoo. At first, it was just one pair of eyes that caught it, then another. And soon, the murmurs began, whispers sharp enough to slice through the heavy air. Someone chuckled, then another joined in. By the time she stood back in line, the laughter was no longer hidden. It was aimed directly at her. Figures. One soldier muttered just loud enough for others to hear. Always trying to make a statement. Another shook his head, smirking. What's she even doing here? Can't fight, so she paints her skin instead. Maya kept her gaze forward, jaw locked tight, but every word felt like a blow. Every sneer a reminder that to them, she was never just a soldier. She was a target. And no matter how many push-ups she did, no matter how fast she ran, her skin and her story were things they thought they could belittle. NNBY evening, the mockery had spread like wildfire. In the mess hall, conversations fell quiet the moment she walked in. In the barracks, laughter echoed behind her back. And always, it circled back to that tattoo, the one piece of her past she had kept close, hidden, sacred. NNBUT on the training field the next morning, the whispers turned crueler. Bet she inked it just to feel important. Probably doesn't even know what it means. The words stung. Not because they doubted her strength, but because they mocked something they didn't understand, something tied to generations before her, to struggles and victories that had carved her very identity. And yet, she stayed silent. Not because she was weak, but because silence, she knew, could sometimes hold more power than shouting. NNBUT power only lasts so long before the weight of injustice demands release. And that moment came when the commanding officers gathered the unit for inspection. The sun blazed down as boots clicked into neat rows. Maya's sleeve slipped again, and this time, the laughter wasn't hidden. It broke out loud, echoing through the ranks, each chuckle a dagger to her dignity. NNSHE swallowed hard, her hands trembling at her side. Should she speak? Should she demand respect she had more than earned? Or would one word, one wrong move, seal her fate in a place where authority already looked the other way? Before she could decide, a shadow stretched across the ground. The air shifted. Silence fell so quickly it was deafening. A figure approached, the highest-ranking officer on the field, the general. And, as he stopped before her, his gaze locked on the tattoo the others had mocked. Maya's heart pounded in her chest. For the first time, she wasn't sure if this moment would destroy her, or change everything. The general's boots stopped inches from Maya. His presence alone silenced the laughter, but the sting of humiliation still burned in her chest. Every pair of eyes was locked on her, waiting, some with smirks still on their faces, others with unease creeping in now that authority stood so close. NTHE General's gaze lingered on her tattoo. The air grew heavier with each second, her pulse hammering in her ears. She braced herself for the worst, for another judgment, another dismissal, another confirmation that in this place, her skin and her story would never be enough. Then, slowly, the general reached for his own sleeve. The motion was deliberate, heavy with meaning. The fabric rolled upward, inch by inch, until his forearm was bare. Gasps rippled through the ranks. There it was, a tattoo, inked deep and proud, mirroring the very mark Maya had carried in silence. NNTHE, same symbol, the same legacy. NNTHE recruits, who had mocked her, stared in stunned silence, their arrogance collapsing under the weight of truth. For the first time, Maya's shame turned into fire, not of anger, but of belonging, of vindication. She had been carrying a piece of history the others couldn't understand, but one the general himself had chosen to wear. And NHE didn't say a word. He didn't need to. The silence spoke louder than any lecture, louder than any reprimand. And in that silence, every laugh, every cruel whisper, turned to ash. Maya's eyes burned, not with weakness, but with the strength of knowing she had never been alone, not truly. Yet, as the general's sleeve fell back into place and he turned his gaze across the formation, one question lingered heavy in the air. NNIF, a mark of pride, could be mocked so easily. What did that say about the world they all served? When the inspection ended, the recruits dispersed in uneasy silence. The same voices that had mocked Maya just hours before now kept their heads low, their laughter swallowed whole by shame. For Maya, the sting of humiliation hadn't vanished, but something deeper had taken its place. Strength. Vindication. A reminder that her story, her mark, carried weight far greater than their ignorance. NNTHE General never explained his tattoo. He didn't need to. In that single, silent act, he had revealed a truth they could no longer deny, that what Maya carried on her skin was not weakness, not rebellion, but history. It was legacy. It was pride. NNBUT, even as she stood taller, Maya knew this wasn't the end of the struggle. For every room where silence exposed the truth, there were countless more where laughter still cut deep, where prejudice still disguised itself as jokes, where power still turned its back on justice. NHER victory that day wasn't just personal. It was a reminder that racism doesn't always scream. It whispers. It mocks, it hides in plain sight, and unless confronted, it thrives. The question isn't whether Maya proved her worth. She always had. The real question is, how many more Mayas will be forced to endure humiliation before respect becomes the norm? NNHER tattoo told a story. The general's tattoo told the same. But what story will we tell when silence is no longer an option and action is the only answer?